Good afternoon.
Good evening. Welcome back to Tipsy Casting. I'm Jess, and this is my co-host Jen. Thank you all for tuning in again this week. We are very excited to welcome one of our friends, the wonderful and talented Danielle Macdonald, to Tipsy Casting.
Danielle was born and raised in Sydney, Australia. At the age of 18, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting full-time. Audiences know Danielle for her breakout role as Patti in Fox Searchlight's Patti Cakes, as well as the title character opposite Jennifer Aniston in DUMPLIN. She also stars in the romantic comedy Falling for Figaro from director Ben Lewin.
She most recently stars alongside Jamie Dornan in the new Max thriller The Tourist, for which she won the Breakthrough Actor Award at the Edinburgh TV Festival's TV Awards, and she can most recently also be seen as the guest lead in Ryan Johnson's new Peacock anthology series Poker Face alongside Natasha Lyonne. Now grab a cocktail
Or a mocktail.
and enjoy.
Danielle, hello. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to have you. What big question. What are you drinking today?
I am drinking a Guinness because I'm in Ireland, so it felt really appropriate to drink Guinness.
And
I
it's
love it. Have you been
properly
drinking
poured.
a lot?
You know what? I actually had never had Guinness, which might be really embarrassing to say until I got here. And then I was like, oh, I have to do it. So I did it like the second day I came, and I was like, wait, I actually like this. So I have actually been having the occasional pint of it. Yeah.
I love it.
I think it tastes different there. It tastes way lighter and fresher when you have it in Ireland.
That's what people say, and I've only had it in Ireland, so I can't actually compare it to not in Ireland, but it's great here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it's the
love
weirdest
it.
thing
And Jess-
when I've had it here before. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was going to ask what you were drinking.
Oh, I am drinking also an international space here. I'm drinking some limoncello that my mom brought from Italy.
Very nice.
And that's
And
lovely.
is this your first time with limoncello or no?
Yeah, I've never had limoncello.
You've
about to
never
try my
had
first sip.
limoncello?
No.
Well, I
it's
never had Guinness, so I can't really say anything. But I'm also half Italian, so like my family makes limoncello. So
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm
Yeah.
excited. I was told to be careful because it's strong if you have like a
it's a
decent amount.
liqueur. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
You throw it back.
What about you, Jen?
So I changed it up a little bit. I'm doing a Malbec. I was going to do an espresso martini, but then I really just couldn't be bothered to make it. I sat there looking at all the ingredients and I was like, I really need to do this. And I just went for the wine instead because I'm lazy today. So I went for a Malbec. Yeah.
I love it. So we usually like to start our episodes with a wine of the week, which is unfiltered, uninterrupted complaining on your behalf about anything. Is there anything you would like to whine about?
Oh my God, that's so hard. I honestly struggle with whining, like in a general sense of things. It's like other people tell me your problems. But this is fresh in my brain, so I'll give you this. I'm working on a job right now, and we've just done rain sequences, and I've shot in the rain before, but I just truly never realized how miserable it could be until you're like standing in a cold place for 10 hours in wet clothes in the rain, and it's really, really unpleasant. It's really, really unpleasant, and it makes you think, what are we doing with our lives? This is such a weird job. Like, what is this? But also, like, I love it, so but also want to complain about it when I'm in it because I'm miserable. So yeah, there you go. The dualities of the industry.
Was it natural rain or made rain?
No, because ironically, I'm in Ireland where it rains all the time. And it has not rained for like 2 weeks straight. And we had full sunshine, and it was meant to be torrential downpour. So, we've had a really great time trying to hide the sun while also creating fake torrential downpour. Yeah, it's been great. It's been really, really interesting to try and figure out, to be honest. But
That's so
yeah,
funny.
we're getting through it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're working on? Is it already
Uh,
out in the
y-
world?
yes, it is. I am doing a project called The Tourist. I already did a season 1 of it. And now I'm working on season 2 of it, in Ireland for the BBC in the UK.
I am
So
very
yeah.
excited for the second season. I watch you know Ali Bader. We watch every week together different shows, and when The Tourist was on, we jammed right through it, but it was very stressful for us.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. I'm really excited for the second season, especially that it's set in Ireland. Even better.
Yes, yeah. I don't know how much more I'm allowed to say besides the fact that it's set in Ireland. I did announce some cast members, but yeah, it's set in Ireland and I'm in it. And
Well,
Jamie's in
very.
it again as well. Jamie's returning. And a couple other people. So it's been really good and really fun and it's totally different. It's been a totally different experience because it's totally I mean,
Because the
I'm
first
like,
one was in
we're in
Australia,
an
correct?
entire, yeah, exactly. So like we're in an entirely new country with an entirely new like creative team, same writers, but otherwise, you know, we've got new directors and new cinematographers. One of our cinematographers is coming back, which I'm excited about, and Jamie and I are in it, and Greg, who plays Ethan, has come back as well for a little bit. Like I feel like that's such a spoiler, but it's already like also released, so it's not. But anyway, um, but aside from that, everyone is new. Like everyone is new, and it's like a whole new storyline. So it's kind of wild because I've never done a character a second time. I've never done a sequel to a movie, and I've never done an ongoing series. So it's really strange to be doing a character again, but it be entirely like different. That's what's
Oh.
really, really interesting. And I didn't have any, I didn't work with Jamie for like the first couple weeks that we were filming. So it was like entirely new. I was like, I do not know one person here. Everything is different. It's insanely different, but I'm playing the same character and I feel like I'm going crazy. It was like really, really interesting at first. Yeah.
I think it's so cool because you had such a beautiful evolution to your character just in the first season. And so
Yeah.
now I'm very excited to see where she goes next.
Jess is like, come
Well,
on,
I
give
hope
me a
you enjoy
spoiler.
it.
Give me a spoiler.
No, I won't push. I won't push. I know better. But I'm just genuinely, as a fan, I'm very excited to watch it.
I hope it lives up to everyone's expectations and
I'm sure it
everyone
will.
enjoys it. And yeah, but it's
So
been
how
fun.
far into are you shooting? Are you like where in the process are you?
We're exactly halfway.
Yeah.
Exactly. We reached the halfway mark on this weekend. So and what it's Tuesday,
Wow.
it's Tuesday, right? It's Tuesday. Yeah. So we're like
It is today.
we've just started the second half. Yeah. But yeah, I mean we're shooting in like 3 different blocks and we're shooting a little out of order within the blocks. So um yeah. I'm still got like stuff from like episode 1 that I still have to shoot, but I'm also shooting stuff from like later in the season. So it's kind of it's really it's fun and crazy all at the same time.
So is it
Yeah.
something where they ended up
That's
giving
been
you the entire storylines and scripts ahead of time then so that you kind of know to be able to jump like that? Because I feel like wouldn't it be difficult with your character to be like, oh wait, I'm in this emotional headspace and then jump to 6 weeks later or whatever like that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's I got the first 4 episodes before I came out here, and then my first week in prep week we got the last 2 episodes. So yeah, we have got all of the episodes are fully done, and yeah, we've had them for the whole shoot. So it's been nice to like know the full arc and evolution of it. Because when we did season 1, I don't think I got like episode 5 and 6 until we were a month into shooting. And I was like, I have no idea where this is going at all. So it's like actually really nice to kind of like be fully clued in and be like, oh, I know exactly where this is starting and going and the full evolution. And it definitely helps when you're Yeah, because there's so many like different dynamics and relationships, so it's nice to be able to kind of like jump around because a lot's going on um in the show. Yeah.
That's it. I'm so interested in that process though, because it's like, does it help you? Yes, it's great to know the evolution of the character and where the scenes are going, but does it help you stay in the moment if you don't know where she's going?
Um uh no, honestly, I feel like I do it really day to day, honestly. Which is what's good. I mean, I really try and just focus on like whatever is happening on the day at hand. I have a little notebook that it's just like this tiny little pocket notebook, and I write the scenes. I do it every weekend. I do it for the following week, and each page has the scenes that we're filming in the moment before that scene, so I know where we are in the storyline, and so I can just like be in that exact moment. And sometimes other episodes feel like it's an entirely different project, and I'm like, I haven't even begun to think about that, even though I know
Yeah.
what's happening. I know I know the story obviously, but I'm like, I cannot even think about focusing on that because
Hmm.
my head is so in this place right now, and each episode there's so much going on that like things drastically change constantly. So it really, yeah, I think as long as you just like fully stay in the moment and really don't focus on the next bit, that's been the main thing that helps. And we have 3 different directors shooting 2 episodes each. So that's also been helpful because I kind of associate each director with like almost its own storyline plot point.
Mm.
Because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm kind of in a similar headspace for 1 and 2, and then kind of in a completely different headspace for 3 and 4, but then a completely different headspace for like 5 and 6. So it kind of helps me in that way, in a strange way. So that's been helpful, but I can do it either way. I think the only thing
Mm.
is when you have something that you need to know that you find out at the end that your character knew the whole time. That's the one time
Oh,
where I'm like, if there's like a secret revealed to the audience at the very end and you're like, okay, but I needed to know that the whole time because it like might affect how you play, that's the only time where I actually care
yeah.
to know. But otherwise, it's just fun if you get to know, but it's not like fully necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. That reminds me, I was working on the pilot of Person of Interest. This is years ago now, and there was the major guest star of the entire episode. She was like the district attorney, and it's a huge reveal of, the first episode that's out in the world, that you find out at the end of the episode that she's actually sort of the ringleader of the crime spree folks. And we
Yeah.
couldn't tell any of the actors that were coming into audition, but they had to be able to portray the different layers to that character, to know that she, like, when she is seeking information from people she's talking to, it's not because she's trying to help them, it's because she's trying to figure out who she has to take care of next. And so
Oh,
it wasn't until we got down to the final few actors that we brought them in for callbacks, and we had to tell them in the room what the
oh,
reveal was, and they couldn't have time to prepare because it was Bad Robot, so it was super confidential.
yeah.
And I was like, that has to be so frustrating for these poor actors, but maybe it's good because they get to be, discover it while they're doing, I don't know.
That's kind of hard. I mean, it's hard not knowing because like you totally would have done a different performance. But then I guess once you're in the room, at least you get to know that information and you can kind of like take that in on the fly and discover it as you do it. Right? I think.
Yeah,
I think.
I think for
I
the
don't know.
most part we were
Yeah.
okay, but I just felt
Yeah.
so guilty for these actors. They were like, good luck.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
Because like also you want us to do the right thing so that we can book the job. Like so it's a
Yeah.
hard one if you're not allowed to, but I guess that's the thing. Like, I think so many people forget that things are like out of so many people's control. It's like it's always coming from a different place, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
hard.
Oh, so crazy. So if you don't mind, I would love to hear. I don't think I've ever heard like how you got into acting. Like I've never heard the Danielle baby story of like how did you come up into this work? Because like clearly we know you're from Australia, but like
Yes.
what? Take me through it. Take me back into the day. Because I just would love to kind of hear how this all came about. Because I met you. I did Dumpling back in the day. And that was when I first got introduced to you. So, and I know you were a bit newer on the scene in LA, but like, would love to hear kind of the progression.
Yeah. Gosh, okay. I don't know when it was that I decided I wanted to be an actor. I feel like some people are like, I knew from the moment I was born. It wasn't like that for me, and there also wasn't like some big pivotal moment where I was like, aha, either. I kind of just really loved it. I always loved TV and films, like my whole life. I did a lot of sports growing up, and I also did well in school. I always, did my homework and got my like good grades and all that stuff. So when the only thing I would ever ask my parents was to stop and go to the DVD store or like the video store really back in the day and like get videos and DVDs for the weekend, they were like, sure, you do everything else. So yeah, they said that I would constantly ask like every day. I just wanted new shows and new movies to watch. And so I've always been in love with watching film and TV. And then I think I started doing like performing arts classes at about 12 because I was really shy. I wasn't as a kid, and then I think, you go to school and then all of a sudden you get shy. I don't know how that happened, but I think I got kind of shy. And I remember my first year in like acting classes, everyone was really loud and like loved performing, and I was really quiet and no one actually knew me. And then I did a play. I auditioned and did a play at the end of that year. And some of my classmates came and saw it. And the teacher was like, well, now we know you can talk. So now you have to. And all of a sudden, I like actually opened up a bit more and made friends and stuff like that. So I think it really helped me just gain confidence, honestly, which is really nice. And, I'm still friends with a lot of those people that I met there. So that's really, really nice. And I don't know, it kind of clicked. I think when I hit about 10th grade, I was like, yeah, that's kind of the only future I can see. But also I lived in Australia and I got an agent, I think when I was about 16, and I never had an audition. All my other there's like a long running hospital drama there called All Saints. I don't know if it's still on. It's probably not. But it was on for years and years and years, and we all watched it, and everyone auditioned for All Saints. It was always an audition for All Saints. If all else failed, you'd get an audition for All Saints. And I never got an audition for All Saints. I can't believe it. And I was like, I wasn't expecting to get an audition for like Home and Away or Neighbours. I was like, everyone on Home and Away kind of looked like Chris Hemsworth, and I was like, that's okay, I get it. That's not going to be me. But I was like, why can't I be a sick, dying hospital patient? And and I just never did. And I was like, so I don't understand how I'm going to be an actor in an industry that it was very small at the time, because I left 13 years ago. It's expanded a lot now, and it's it's a lot more inclusive and diverse now, I know. But at the time it was just very small and kind of specific with only a few shows, and I just never had one audition in like 3 years. So it just didn't seem possible to break into, honestly. And everyone would always ask me what I wanted to be, and I was like too nervous to say I wanted to be an actor because just people would look at you weirdly, and that was so embarrassing to me, which is so stupid, honestly. But I would always be like, yeah, I want to be in the film industry in some way. I don't know. And then I moved to America. Kind of, honestly, it was very weird. I went to America to do an acting tour. Just to like learn about the US industry, just because I was like, I don't understand how I'm meant to get in the Australian industry. And the US industry, I went there and I was like, oh, it's so much bigger, and it actually seems like I could possibly get small roles out here, character roles. And I was like, that's exciting, because that just doesn't really exist where I live. And I came out here, and a casting director actually was just talking to us about like unions and like how do you even like get in the industry out here. And he ended up saying, I have friends that are managers, and I think you should be out here working. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'd love to. And he literally on the spot called up his friends and they were like, come to Beverly Hills. And I was in Burbank and, you know, it was before Uber. So I got a cab from Burbank to Beverly Hills. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And I met with these managers and they're like, we've got an audition for you for tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God, first audition. This is so exciting. And I was like, what is even happening? Because this all happened like in the space of a day. It was insane.
Wow.
And so I went to this audition the next day. Again, I caught a cab to Glendale this time. And I went in for the show, and it was a show on ABC Family in 2010. It was called Huge. And I had the audition and it was great. It was amazing. It was Bob Stortle. Am I saying that right? And Angela Terry. Yes, I think I'm saying that right. Anyway, this was a very long time ago, 13 years. Look at my brain go. And they were really amazing. They worked with me in the room and they gave me notes, and I think I was in there for like 30 minutes. It was wild. And I was like, wow, people are really nice here, and like the rooms are really great, like actually work with you, and this is what auditioning is. This is so cool. And they told me in the room that I had a call back for the next day, and I was like, oh, and you find out in the room, wow, this is really neat. Obviously I have since found out it doesn't always work like this, but you know, this is my first experience. And so I went to the callback the next day, and I was flying out later that night. And at the callback, they told me that I was going to test for the role, which was really random. But they were in their first week of auditions and they were doing a nationwide search. And so it probably wouldn't be for like a month at least. And I was like, okay, so I guess I go back to Australia tonight. So I went back to Australia, and then it was just a month of, they were like, okay, but if you're going to test for this, you have to be able to get a visa. So I had to like contact a lawyer. It was all these like kind of wild things. I was like, this is so insane anyway, because like I don't even know if this is going to happen. So I like kind of spoke, and a few lawyers were like, yeah, if you gather everything and then like if you actually have a contract in place, it's a possibility. You know, it is. Yeah. It's because it's a series regular. It's definitely a possibility, but it is also like your first job, so we'll have to see. And I was like, okay. I waited the month. I came back to the States. I tested for the role, and they told me that night I booked it, and it was like only a week until it started filming, and I had to go back to Australia to figure out this visa process. And with the contract, my lawyers filed it and everything, and they waited as long as they could. And then I think the day before they started shooting, they gave me the call being like, we have to call someone else. And I was like, okay, great. That's okay. It was heartbreaking, honestly. But I 3 days later got the approval that I had got my visa. So I was like, okay. And they were like, we'll write you into the series as a recurring. And I was like, okay. And they were like, you just need to get your Social Security sorted out. And this was back in the day where you had to go to the Social Security office and they didn't just tell you the number and then, you know, you had to wait for the card. You had to wait for the card to find out the number. Now it's changed. Now I found out within 48 hours, they'll give you the number. Anyway, at the time they didn't. It got lost in the mail. It took 8 weeks to come.
Oh my goodness.
So it was really annoying because you couldn't request a new one until 6 weeks had passed. So then another 2 weeks later, I finally got it. And at that point, in episode 2, they'd actually written in a character called Danielle. I couldn't do it. They cast someone else. And then they were like, if we get picked up for a season 2, we'll write you in. And then it didn't get picked up. And I was like, I was really not meant to do this job. Like, for some reason, the universe did not want me on this show. But also, I'm so incredibly grateful to it and that entire experience, because it's the only way that I was able to come out and start fresh in America. And so that's what I did. Then I just started from scratch. with, no money and no job, and had to do it the way that everyone else does it. And, it's a little too easy to book a series regular role on your first job. So I'm kind of glad I actually had to like figure out that that's not how the industry works, and it's not actually that easy, and go through the whole process. But yeah, that is my origin story.
But that's so great. Even though it didn't, you were being protected in some fashion from not being on this show. But
Yeah.
I think it was a really great thing that you had this experience as your first experience, where everybody was so open and collaborative as your introduction to working in the States, because we all know from our different sides of the industry that some of us find each other through trauma bonding, and that is good that you did not have that experience.
Yes. Yes. No, I'm very lucky. It was a very good introduction, actually. So yeah,
I
I
bet,
was
like,
very
going
lucky.
through it at the time, you're probably like, why, God, why? Because, like, literally, it's like you were this close. Like, I can imagine just, like, almost feeling like, excuse me, like that excitement of like, oh my gosh, it's right there. And you just almost, it gets taken away once, and then you're almost there back again, and it gets taken away again. I mean, good for you for persevering through it, because, like, clearly you're doing quite well now. But yeah, what a
It was
crazy
heartbreaking
first
at the
start.
time. Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking. But, you move on. I'm also, I think, when I was in Australia, there was so much like, oh, don't go to the States. It's so hard. People come back disappointed. And I was like, I know, but also if I don't try, how am I meant to like know what it could lead to? So I think because there was so much, oh, this, I don't know if you should even go, just from like industry people. I think that made me think I'm going to go to America and I'm not going to book a job for 10 years. And that's just how it is. And that's okay. And I'm just going to have to like survive. So I think I came in with like weirdly this like really negative perspective. It's going to be really hard. People are going to be awful and I'm not going to book and it's going to be okay. And I just have to get through. That when anything good happened, I was like, oh, look, this is a plus. It's like, and I feel like I met so many people that came to LA with the exact opposite perspective. And they were like, oh, I was the lead in all of my college things. And, I got told I should be here and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, it wasn't my experience. And then they get like really disheartened by the industry almost in a way when it takes a while. And so I almost like weirdly feel grateful that I was kind of like beaten down young in a weird way, because I was like, it made me not have crazy expectations. But yeah.
And then you also had the gift of finding, Rodney and Todd so early on, that they're, to give them a shout out, because they're just wonderful people. And I think also they're really intentional about everything they do, and the people that they sign, and really curating careers. That that is like such a incredible blessing to have that sort of team behind you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they were the people that the casting director called that day. They were them, and I went to their offices in Beverly Hills, and because I caught a cab there, it was really funny. My manager Rodney, he was like, "It's my lunch break. I'm going to drive you back," and he literally drove me from Beverly Hills back to Burbank in his lunch break, just because he was like, "This, it must be crazy overwhelming for you. You're 18," and it was so kind. And he drove me to my first ever test for that show. He, helped me get settled when I first came out. Rodney and Todd have been with me from the very beginning, since my first ever audition, and I'll be with them for forever. And they're like family to me now. And I'm so incredibly lucky I got that. I know so many people that have come to LA and just never been able to find that relationship with their rep. And I think it's so important to have rep that understand you and that will always protect you as well, and really have your best interests at heart. And I was so incredibly lucky and fortunate to find them. And straight away, I'm so aware that that is rare, and that I was so lucky for that to happen.
Yeah. And then I don't know what the time lapse was between, but like obviously your big breakout for most people that know you was Patty Cakes. So what was the time lapse between all of the testing that you did with Huge and then and that breakout, and what was that process like?
Okay, so I tested for Huge in January of 2010. And then the first sign of anything to do with patty cakes came in June of 2014, which is 4.5 years later. I did work in that time. I did, I think the first thing I ever booked was a short film, which was very exciting for me.
Yeah.
And then, I did an episode of Glee and they Taft-Hartley'd me and I got my SAG card, which I think was the other like big hurdle that you're like, how am I meant to become a part of the union? And then I did a film. And so I got like a little bit of experience, which I think was just great to like be on set and learning. And then in mid 2014, someone reached out from the Sundance Directors Lab. And a lot of people don't know about it, but I didn't know about it until it happened. But the Sundance Directors Lab kind of help emerging writers and directors kind of like get their first film funded and made, and like it's basically all volunteer basis. So they had these 8 directors coming out for the summer, and each of the directors had a project, and they were allowed to invite 3 actors each. And the actors come out as volunteers. They have cinematographers, they have crews, they have editors. Everyone comes out as a volunteer. They have mentors that come out as well. And it's just this like crazy artistic process. It was truly one of the best experiences of my life. But I got this call to come out and do this workshop for this film. And the director never met me, and I was so confused because he's like, that he kind of contacted me, and he's like, so to be playing a rapper from New Jersey, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to tell you this. I can't rap. I also can't do a Jersey accent. To be fully honest, I could learn, but you want me to come in 3 days, and I don't know that it's necessarily gonna be in tip-top shape in 3 days. And so it was like freaking out and kind of trying to feel like, I'm going to tell you every reason why this absolutely does not work so that you realize this is a bad idea. But if for some reason you still want me to come, I will come, because I cannot say no to an opportunity. And he was like, I need an actor right now. So if you can just do an American accent, that's fine, which I could. And he's like, it's not about the rapping. That'll come later. Like, I do need you to learn 3 songs, but it's fine if you're bad. And I was like, okay, great, sure. And he's like, but I'm trying to workshop this character. I'm trying to figure out who the character is. So essentially I really need an actor, not a musician. I was like, okay. So I went out there, and I did learn these raps that he'd written, and I was bad. Let's be real. But he was also like, yeah, it needs a lot of work, but there is something there. I really do. And from that moment, at the end of this like 4-week workshop of just incredibleness, he was like, I want to do this with you, but we don't have funding. It may never get made, but we're going to try. And I believe it will. And I was like, me too. And so he started sending me a rap every week, and I would learn it, and I would do it into my phone, and I would send it back to him every week. And then I did that for 2 years. And then when we made the film, we finally got funding at the very end of 2015, the very beginning of 2016, and we filmed in 2016. And a year and a half later, I'd been doing these raps for a year and a half, and we finally got funding, and it was like, oh wow, this is all for something. And then I started doing like 3 a week and like really practicing. And I started only listening to rap music. I started only listening to Jersey people talk to each other, honestly, to try and learn the accent. He bought me a pair of Timberlands so that I could learn how to walk like this character. Like, it was honestly very immersive and totally different. They flew me out to New York so that I could, meet with some rappers and just hang out with them and kind of like get a vibe, because it was a culture that I didn't fully know. I'd never been immersed in before. And then we filmed. So in 2016. So it was pretty wild.
And you got to work with Kathy Moriarty and Bridget
I did.
Everett, and like I've always loved Kathy Moriarty, but I'm obsessed with Bridget Everett. I feel like, and I think this is part of who you are as well, of like women who are unapologetically themselves. Like
Yeah.
they, and I love that, and I feel like I'm getting to see a lot more of those sort of actors and a lot more of those characters that are coming to life, and I think it's such a beautiful thing for us to all be able to embrace.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Bridget also came out to the Sundance Directors Lab with me. And so I met her in 2014. And anytime I was in the same city as her, I would go to her shows and meet up with her. And so we were so excited to kind of get to do it because I think at that point we'd already established a relationship. And I remember she was really nervous when we filmed Patty Cakes. And it was so funny because she would go on stage and be this like larger than life, incredible personality that like had no filter, could dominate any person in that room and like just command an entire audience. And it was incredible to see, something I could never do. I was like, I could never do that. And she'd come to set and she'd be nervous. And I'd be like, this is wild, but it was something totally new for her. This was like her first big film. It was like one of the first things she'd really done for screen. And it was this amazing learning curve for all of us because I think we were all doing things that were really new to us. Like the music aspect was really, really new to me. And obviously the accent was really new to me. And then obviously Scream was new to her. And same with Sid, who played Jerry, my best friend. He was new to acting as well. Like he and I would just improv a lot, like in downtime, just so that he would like get a flow for it. Honestly, like we were all doing things that were completely out of our wheelhouse. And we were all so incredibly supportive of each other with this director that just believed in us, like completely, wholly and completely. And if something wasn't going right, he's like, it's okay. We're going to figure it out. And we did. Like we did every time because he had that confidence in us. And that is so rare to find in a director. Like he is, I think, the reason we were all able to perform like that. And we all felt safe doing that. And the producers too, I will give them their credit because sometimes producers can have a lot of like pressure breathing down your neck on set, especially on an indie film or you're on a tight budget, and they were always there to support us the whole time, and they were like really in it with us. It felt like we were all on this boat together, and the sleepless boat together, and it was incredible, and it was truly one of the best experiences of my life and always will be because of it.
I remember leaving that screening and just thinking like, wow, this really felt like lightning in a bottle. It was so special to watch in theaters, and so I get very excited about it.
Thank you.
I mean, it's kind of a cool story. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but like, so my old boss and I went and saw Patty Cakes at a screening at CAA. And we both walked down, we looked at each other, and we're like, holy crap. And that's when we were casting Dumplin. And we're like, we're going to go back and see if we can get her for Dumplin. And that's how it all kind of started. And I was like, it was such a special movie that just kind of, you pop so big off of it. That's just like, it was phenomenal.
I actually did know this only because I had read Dumplin and I loved Dumplin. Like I loved the book. I was obsessed with it. I read it in one day. I couldn't put it down. I was in New York and I was like meant to be seeing the sights. I didn't leave my room. I just read Dumplin the entire day because I couldn't put it down. And you guys were casting, and so my I know that my agent himself was screaming to like be like, please consider her. So I did know this. I was like, that's oh hilarious. God, hopefully they don't hate it.
Here, I thought we were like, wow, we knew exactly what we were doing. Nope, you guys played us. No, just kidding.
Not at all. I was just like, oh my God, what if they hate it? Like, what if they hate it? There's no hope. It's just, this is all I want in life. It's fine.
I hope it.
So, yeah.
That's so funny.
I love it. Love it. And honestly, you've had such an amazing career since then. Like, how do you kind of now, because I feel like you're maybe getting to a point in your career where you really get to choose what you want to do and you get offered things, and like, how are you choosing to make that? It's a double word, but how are you choosing to make these choices in your career of like what to do next? Because you really don't make a wrong step, which I know is really hard for an actor to like not do something that's not great, and you've created such a great foundation.
feel like it's impossible to not. Yeah, I've been really, really lucky, I'm gonna say. I've been incredibly lucky. Um, yeah, I feel like it's at some point, there, it's impossible to only have hits in your life. That's not a possibility, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I know that there's gonna be things along the way, and it is what it is, but I think that's almost freeing in a way, in a weird
Mm.
way, to be like, you know what, sometimes it is what it is, and like it's okay, on to the next. But I think I try not to overthink too much. Like, yes, I definitely have a lot more opportunity since Patty Cakes came out, since Dumpling came out. They were obviously like very big for me. And then Bird Box came out like a week after Dumpling came out, and it was literally, I filmed it a week after Dumpling as well. Those two were like basically just so back to back. I really packaged them together in my mind for some reason. But all this kind of like came out within a year of each other. And so I know that since then there has been a lot more opportunity, which has been amazing. But I, it's not like I just have free reign or I'm not getting like whatever I want. So it's, there's still a lot of hoping that people will consider you for things, kind of like think outside the box.
Mhm.
That's always the hope. But then also for the things that do come my way, I try and go with my gut. Honestly, sometimes this is so weird, but sometimes, like, even after it's happened that I've booked a project before, and Rodney, my manager, will be like, "You're being weirdly negative about this," and I'm like, "I'm not being negative. I just, for some reason, it doesn't feel real." And he's like, "You booked it. It's happening." I'm like, "Right. Yeah, I know. It's weird. Maybe I'll believe it when I'm on set." And he's like, "What?" And then of course it falls through, and I'm like, I don't know why.
Oh.
I just like have these weird feelings sometimes. So sometimes I'll read something and just everything in me is saying no for whatever reason. And so I won't. Sometimes I'm have zero idea and I'm just like, I need opinions and let's just go forward and hope for the best. And then sometimes I really fall in love with things, and sometimes I get to do those things and sometimes I don't. Sometimes you don't get them, and that sucks. And it's always heartbreaking when that happens, especially when you love something. But then sometimes you do. And I think The Tourist was one of the things that I was like so excited to get to do in a really long time. And so when that actually like went through, I was so excited. I cried, which I don't think I cried from booking a job in like a really long time. I don't know why. I just am not like a big crier in that way, but I like actually was so excited. So it's amazing, yeah, that got to continue. But yeah.
I want to ask also, because you have something on your resume that is very, very much in contrast of what you've done so far, for the most part, was Falling for Figaro.
Yeah.
And how, like, what was that experience like of did you pursue that? Did that come to you? Like the operatic aspect of it? Like, what was that
This
for you?
is okay, this is actually funny because this is one of those things that came my way and I was like, I truly have no idea. Like, I like this. It's weird and quirky and I like it. And I was like, but I have no idea how this is going to go. Like, I actually can't even visualize this, which is strange because usually, well, no, that's not true. I feel like once I understand the tone, then I'm like, okay, I can visualize it. But for some reason, I didn't really understand the tone of the movie until like we were already filming, which is terrible, which is a lot of anxiety because I was like, I am terrible, is basically what was going through my mind the first part of that film. But I knew like instantly when I met the director, he was absolutely lovely. He's great. And I'd really liked his past work. It's really interesting and like quirky and fun. And he has a very specific kind of mind, which I think is really cool. So I don't know. I kind of went into that a little blind in the sense of like, for some reason, I don't exactly know what this is going to be. And I ended up loving the experience. I loved all the people I was with. I loved Scotland. And I think, I was probably also a little bit blinded by the fact that I was so terrified about having to perform opera when I don't sing. it's not ideal, you know, it's really not. And I did mention to him straight up, I was like, I'm not a singer. And he's like, there's no point even getting a singer for this, just because we're going to have to get it has to be like a highly trained opera singer.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're getting actors that can sing. Like, we're getting actors, and then we're going to get highly, highly trained opera singers that are not actors to do the opera, because the two don't necessarily like go hand in hand very commonly.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, okay, fine. But my co-star, Hugh Skinner, is in fact an amazing singer, is in fact a brilliant singer, and having to sing a duet with a brilliant singer when you can barely stay on key, it's not super fun on set, you know? It's like, it's mortifying, but but they never made me feel bad about it. So it was more just, it was amazing. Honestly, like that was such a great experience, and I think I was so excited to do a rom-com, like be a lead of a rom-com. I genuinely didn't think that was something that I was ever going to be able to do, or just not something I saw in my future, because I didn't really, you know, see myself on screen in that way, especially growing up. So I think that was like an exciting / also maybe terrifying thing to think about, which is probably also why I was like, I can't picture this, because I couldn't really picture myself in a weird way. And you don't realize how much that affects you, like what you see on television, how you can see yourself in the world, until, you know, you're confronted with it and you're like, why can't I see this? Why do I feel blind right now? And I'm like, right, because I didn't see that growing up. And so it was like scary to enter it, but it was incredible. Like, it's just such an amazing group of people. Honestly, it was so fun, and it was so weird. It, like, literally, I think weight was not mentioned once in the movie, like not once. It was just a story about people. And I was like, that is just so rare, you know? And it ended up just being fun and like joyous. And, you know, a lot of my friends are like, that's my favorite thing you've ever done. And I was like, I kind of love that that's just like the thing that, like, for some reason has appealed to people so much in a really nice way. And I think it was like a really, really great experience for me, and definitely really made me kind of like see myself and my career a little bit differently, which was really nice and refreshing in a way.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, first of all, I admire you so much for constantly making career choices that take you out of your comfort zone, because that, it says a lot about who you are, and willing to be vulnerable in that way. I think that's a really, it's an incredible character trait, and very brave. And I'll say, like, as someone who's always struggled with her weight for myself, it is incredible to see that, because you don't see that in yourself. You get to a position where you're like, oh, only people that look a certain way can fall in love and look like that and have these incredible roles. And it's not that way at all. It doesn't have to be. Yeah.
No, I know, it's weird. Honestly, it's weird, because I think when I grew up, I was like, I'm gonna play like characters, and I'm gonna be like the side character, and that's okay. I was just so okay with that. I was so comfortable in that. And it's been so weird to play leads. It's so weird to play love interests. I mean, right now my love interest is Jamie Dornan, you know, like, who's obviously like, who's obviously kind of known as like a heartthrob. And so, like, to me, my brain is like, that's so weird, because that's just not how I ever saw myself, or what I saw myself playing. So to me, the concept is so foreign. But it's also been so eye-opening, and I'm also really happy, because I was like, yeah, I think I needed to see that growing up, and I never did. So I'm glad that there's content out there now where people can maybe see themselves differently and actually see that, why not? You know what I mean? Like, why shouldn't you? So I think that's a really nice thing. But it definitely puts you in situations where you have to like be emotionally vulnerable, and also like have a lot of like self-realization moments where you have to see yourself differently and stuff as well. So it's definitely eye-opening, and I'm just learning and growing as I'm on this journey, guys, just like everyone else.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's what we're all doing.
Absolutely.
So is there like some kind of dream role? Because you kind of said like sometimes you're not, maybe given what you want or whatnot, but like, is there something in this world that like, if Danielle could have a dream role, what would it be?
Yeah, it's funny. I keep saying it because I'm like, I'm gonna keep saying it and just will it into existence because in the same way that I never said I was an actress when I was a teenager because it was too embarrassing. Now I'm like, fuck that. Like, sorry, I may not be allowed to swear, but screw
You
that.
absolutely
Like
can.
I absolutely can. Okay, great. I'm like, why not? But I this sounds completely out of left field of what I do as well, but I would love to do an action movie. Actually, I would really love to do an action movie. I love sports. I love like anything physical. I've always been really into sports. I grew up swimming and doing water polo and gymnastics and I like love boxing. I mean, I did a boxing class today. I love that kind of stuff. Anytime I've gotten to do stunt work is like always such a fun day on set for me. I think a lot of other people are like, oh God, it's stressful, it's stunt day. And I was like, it's stunt day. This is so exciting. Like, so I'm always really excited about that. And so I would absolutely love to be able to do something that requires like a lot of stunt work. I feel like that'd be really fun and an entirely different challenge than anything I have faced. And I think one of the ways I've been really, really lucky in my career is that I've gotten to do a lot of different genres of projects, which has been really amazing in a lot of ways, and played a lot of different kinds of characters. And I really love stretching myself and making myself uncomfortable, as we've already spoken about. So for that reason, I would really love to do something kind of action based. And I would also want to do, I don't watch horror movies, but I want to do one. That's what I've decided. I don't watch them. They're too scary for me. Far too terrifying. But I'm like, I feel like I need to like tick that box in that genre. You know what I mean? I feel like that'd be cool. So
Yeah. Well, to all of our casting friends who are listening, Danielle Macdonald would like to do a horror film and an action film. So sign her
Rodney's
up.
going to be inundated now with offers for you.
I love it.
Two totally different things, but why not?
It's like, why not have fun? It's the time, right?
Yeah.
It's the time. It's the time to explore and like, why not?
Amazing.
Awesome. Okay, so now, do you have anything you want to ask us about casting? Because we are, like I kind of said earlier, we're trying to demystify the casting process a little bit. So Jess and I are opening ourselves up to the world. So if you have any questions or thoughts of like, things that piss you off about casting, things you love, things you just want to know about, like, feel free, ask us anything.
We take no offense.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna ask you the question that I think every single actor in the world is wondering. Do you think that auditions will ever go back in room?
Yes.
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 I'll go. Yeah. So I think I always love how we like stare at each other and like in the camera. No, so I fully believe, especially in the UK, I think we're really close to being fully back in person. I think there will forever be some version of a hybrid for those casting directors who don't seem to want to go back, which is not Jess or I. But for those other ones, they will probably do some kind of hybrid version. But I do think we're very close to going back to in person. And like, I know for myself, I've told every agent in the UK that I've met with, I'm like, as soon as I get my first big project where I can pay for a space in London because it's really stinking expensive. Then I will go back to in person 100%. I miss it a ton.
And I think here they're gonna start, because I don't know if you were sort of in the loop on the Betty May fiasco that happened back in March, but it was I think it started. We got caught in the middle as the scapegoats in the conversation because everybody was mad that they're still doing self-tapes. But I think that instance created conversation on the studio side. And a friend of mine who casts a Fox show said that her executive said, if you guys want an office next season, you're getting an office. So I think, and I think this is also, with the strike authorization for SAG happening yesterday, I think you know, that is, I feel like, should be a conversation point as part of casting directors should have offices as part of the, you know,
Yeah.
having the option to go in person, because,
Yeah.
and not for, because I think there's a lot of animosity from the casting community of like being told how to do their job, which we don't necessarily want. But I think it is
Yeah.
important to be in person. It's a big part of what we do, and that collaboration and that relationship is really important for us.
Yeah.
But and we struggle, Jen and I struggle with a different issue within our community, that, you know, a lot of the high volume casting offices do not want to go back into the office, because if they're not auditioning in person, they can continue to take a lot more work than they would if they were doing in-person auditions. So I think it's like a multi-layered issue. But I know that there are many casting directors, especially sort of the younger generation, who are interested in getting back in person for sure.
Amazing. That's great. I mean, I don't know. I also came up at a time where that was like the only way. Like, it was before you could really do self tapes, and then you know, self tapes did kind of become a thing if you were like on set in a different location, kind of vibe. But I think I don't know. I guess I just feel like for callbacks or for chemistry reads, I've done them on Zoom, and I found them to be like very strange, or not strange, but like something always goes wrong for some reason, like connections, or especially chemistry reads. I'm like, honestly, it's so hard to be able to tell. You know, I actually did a chemistry read for a project. I'm not going to say what or who, just because I don't want anyone to be upset. But I did a chemistry read for a project, and I remember reading, I was like, oh, okay, I think I know which actor makes the most sense. And then they ended up going with someone, the other person. And I was like, okay, great. I mean, I thought they were both great. It doesn't really worry me. But then when I got there in person, I was like, oh my God, obviously it's you. Like, there's no world in which it's not you. Like, you are 100% exactly what I expected, but I couldn't tell that on screen. Like, I truly couldn't get the vibe. And then I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what it is. And I'm so glad that someone else could was on the ground with them, but it made so much sense. So I guess I'm just like happy to hear that, but I know that it's different for every office and whatnot.
For that chemistry read, did you have any alone time with the other actors?
No.
See, that I don't understand,
weird.
because
I
when I would do it in person and when I do them via Zoom now, I always I have the actors log in 15-20 minutes ahead of the actual session, so they can chat and get to know each other, because normally you would be in the same waiting room as the actor and get a sense of them. I feel like that's counterproductive to not even give them a moment.
That's really smart, actually. That's really, really smart. So
did you have to do a chem read with Mr. Dornan?
I didn't. He was absolutely already cast, as you can imagine.
No, I know. I've been on your side.
And on my side, no, for some reason they gave me the role without forcing me to do that.
That's good. It's always nicer when you don't have to.
Very strange. Yeah. We did meet for the first time on Zoom though, because he was in England and I was in LA, and we were filming in Australia, and it was COVID. And so we did meet on Zoom just to like chat. And so that was actually that was how I met him.
I'm just assuming he's a delight. We went to he was being honored 2 years ago, I guess, at the US Ireland Alliance. It's the Oscar Wilde party. And he was I can't meet him because I feel like I wouldn't be able to form sentences. But he was in close proximity. Yes, I know, I'm aware. He was in close proximity, and then he did his acceptance speech, and he's a little bit of everything. Of like, he's very charismatic, he's got the dramatic side, and he gave this like beautiful speech to his wife who was in the audience, and it was just, you're like when's the other shoe gonna drop? Are you this nice of a person the entire time? What is this?
Look, I've known him for 2 years, and I'm still like, is there another side? Like, I don't think the shoe's ever gonna drop. I think he actually just is, like, he's obsessed with his wife. He's obsessed with his
Love it.
kids. Like, he loves
Yeah.
his family more than anything. They come first, and it's so nice to hear him like talk about his family. And he also is just like a really good dude. Like, you know, he really is, like, he just is. Yeah, I don't know. Like, he's a really nice guy. He's kind to everyone on set. He has a relationship with everyone on set. He doesn't complain as well. I was complaining about being cold the other day. I was miserable, and he's like, yeah, it's cold. And I'm like, okay, but it's like really cold. And he's like, yeah, it's cold. So I was like, okay, just me. Okay, great. And you know, I'm like,
he's Irish. He's used to it. It's fine.
you know what? This is actually the gauge of how I've realized if it's cold or not on set, because he said that early on. And so when he asked for his warming jacket, I know. I'm like,
There you
it's
go.
actually cold.
Now
I
it's
know.
cold.
I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. It's actually cold. But no, he really is just a kind, considerate human being. Like, I was on the ground shaking in my warming coat with a hot water bottle, and I was shaking. On the ground, I was sitting down. And he literally took off his jacket and his hot water bottle, just put it on me, because he's like, okay, you're shaking. And I was like, so are you. But he's considerate. He's that kind of guy. So
I love
you can
it.
rest assured, actually a good person. Yeah.
Just for the sleep at night.
Yes. I'm a happy girl. I can move on with my life now. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Well,
Danielle. Before we
yeah.
let you go, we have one very, very, very important question to ask you. And that is, if the
Okay.
world was ending tomorrow, what would be your cocktail that you would cheers the end of the world to?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I think a Moscow Mule. A mule.
Nice
I like a
vodka
mule.
or
That's probably my favorite. No, tequila.
tequila?
Interesting.
So that's not actually Moscow, is it? Because like that would be vodka. Vodka or tequila, honestly.
Yeah.
I've had both, and both work. Both
That would
work.
be like a Tijuana mule, right?
Yeah.
Some bars have like all the fancy names, and they've got all different kinds, and I'm like, any kind of mule, I'll take it. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's the ginger beer that does it. I will have to say,
Absolutely.
just for the record, limoncello is very strong.
It
Really?
is very strong. It's
A little
good, right?
tipsy there, Jess?
It's good. Yes, now I finally am embracing the tipsy side of tipsy casting, but I thought it was going to be like a more refreshing flavor, and it's just very strong, but it's also lemony.
It's sweet
Yeah.
and strong as well. It's like a double whammy.
Yes, it was.
Mm.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a blast getting to know you a little bit more and learning about your journey, and we're just excited to continue to witness your evolution.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was
course.
great chatting with you guys too. I feel like I didn't ask you enough casting questions at all. I'm like,
No,
I've got
that's
more
good.
questions. I do.
There will be a part 2.
You can always do a part 2. Yeah.
I like that. At the same time, you both knew exactly what to say there.
We're just merging into the same person now at this point, so it's perfect.
I love it.
Well,
All right,
cheers
ladies.
to a lovely conversation, and have a wonderful night. Cheers.
Here's my Neil.
If you love listening as much as we love sharing, click subscribe on our YouTube channel or find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.